We'll now go on to the third presentation. It's Naznin Shahulhameed. She is with the Department of Humanities, higher secondary year student. So I assume that this must be her master's level final semester. Zaitoon International Girls Campus, Malappuram. And she is going to talk about isonomia and Article 14 of the Indian Constitution, deciphering synthesized and multifaceted equality theories.
Equality before law is the foundation of a just society. Barack Obama. A very good morning to one and all present here. Today, I'm here before you not with just a presentation, but to share a piece of my journey through discovery and research. The comparative study of isonomia and Article 14 of the Indian Constitution, deciphering the multifaceted theories of equality. Equality before law presents before us as an ideal and a persistent challenge. When we talk about isonomia, which was a system of governance which was practiced in ancient Greece, which heralded equal participation in the political processes, to Article 14 of the Indian Constitution, which enshrines equality before law and equal protection of laws. Now, this is where justice has necessitated political, legal, and a moral engagement. When we talk about isonomia, as it was practiced in Athenian democracy, it embodied a commitment to equal governance through collective deliberation. But the one thing that's different here is its exclusivity. It advocated political agency to just the male citizens. That is what a characteristic that stands out in isonomia. But coming to Article 14 of the Indian Constitution, it governs a more modern and a pluralistic republic, and it aspires to eradicate all of the system injustices that exist in our society today. Now, this paper analyzes all these distinct traditions through a very comparative and a philosophical lens. Moving on, we have the historical and the conceptual foundations. Let's start with isonomia in ancient Greece. Now, as the word kind of sounds Greekish, it is derived from the two Greek words, isos meaning equal, nomos meaning usage, customs, and law. What is isonomia? Let's first answer that question. Isonomia refers to a system of governance which diffuses power among the citizenry. Now, when I say citizenry, I don't mean the women, slaves, or metics. These three categories are actually excluded. Only men. The subcategories of isonomia include isogoria, which means equal speech, isocephalus polis, which means equal voting rights, and isokratia, equal political power. Now, despite this, on the other hand, we have the Athenian legal innovations, which brings me to two terms, graphe paranomen and the mass jury codes. What do you mean by graphe paranomen? It's actually a suit against the illegal and the lawful, unlawful decrees or laws that was produced in the Athenian assembly. Now, it actually gives the citizen a chance to speak up against anything that is against the existing laws. Now, as a result, this results in the punishment for irregular prospers. Moving on, we have the Article 14 of the Indian Constitution, something that's way different from isonomia. It guarantees equal protection of laws and equal treatment of all persons within the Indian territory. And by this, I don't mean just the citizens, all persons within the Indian territory. Now, where does the Indian Constitution, particularly the Article 14, derive their inspiration from? Well, it's from the Dices Rule and the Equal Protection Clause in the US Constitution. Now, this brings me to the very two-pronged theories or the test that was developed by the Indian Constitution. First, The classification must be based on an intelligible differentia. The classification must be reasonable, legit. It mustn't be arbitrary and discriminatory. Second, this differentia must have a rational nexus, a link with the object that is sought to be achieved. Moving on, we have the methodology to be discussed. How is this paper being compared? The analysis, how is it being happening? First, the doctrinal analysis, where we are going to be interpreting the text of the Constitution, the judicial precedents. Second, the textual and the historical analysis, where there's the interpretation of Greek texts and the legal practices. So we'll be able to reconstruct the scope of isonomia. Then, theoretical framework, the application of various theories, starting from the feminist legal theory to the anti-subordination principle, to the Radbruchian formula, and the Rawlsian justice, to both the legal systems. Last but not the least, the embedded case analysis. Now, this case isn't alone. It does have its buddies. The American civil rights struggles and the Indian equality jurisprudence. Okay, now this comparison is being taken place in 5 significant matters. The basis of the comparison between isonomia and Article 14 of the Indian Constitution is done taking in the various theories as the base. The feminist legal theory, anti-subordination principle, the Radbruchian's formula of morality, and last but not the least, you have the Rawlsian's theory of justice. So the comparison will be taken place keeping this as the base, and in 5 significant matters will these be compared. The relation between these two, isonomia and Article 14 of the Indian Constitution, the relationship, the difference between them will be highlighted with descriptive terms. So let's move on to the analytical framework. First and foremost, we have the feminist legal theory. Now, as the name sounds familiar, feminist, related to women, it criticizes the very male-centric legal epistemology of both the legal systems, isonomia and the early Article 14 of the Indian Constitution. They put forward the very idea that formal equality often masks the deeper injustices. And the one more thing that they put forward is that the laws reflecting a male-centric worldview ignores the lived experiences of women, and not just women, the other gender minorities that we have as well. The second theory, anti-subordination principle. Now, I come from the Zaytun campus, and there is subordination there. You have the CEO, you have the principal, vice principal. Now, this theory is actually against it. They put forward the view that we must actively deconstruct the hierarchical structures, and you have the critical racial theorists like Neil Gotanda being against institutional racism and structural inequality. Moving on to the third one, Gustav-Radbruch's formula. Now this person, he was actually a supporter of legal positivism, which demands an ultimate connection, an ultimate disconnection between legality and morality. But his view changed due to the horrific incidents that happened during Nazis' rule in Germany. And he advocated for the connection between legality and morality. And he put forward the view that legality without morality is just lawless law. Moving on to the last theory that is being applied in this paper analysis is the Rawlsian theory of justice. Now, there's something that's different in this theory. First, he advocates for equal basic liberties for all. But then second, he says that all of the systematical social and economic injustices must be arranged as to benefit the least advantaged. So here he's actually advocating for an equality. Moving on we have the comparative legal analysis that's been happening. The 5 significant matters. The inclusiveness of legal subjects being the first. The Athenian model of isonomia has applied legal equality solely to the male citizens only, and they have excluded women, slaves, and metics. Metics, the term as it means resident foreigners. In contrast to all of this, as I'd already discussed, Article 14 of the Indian Constitution applies to all persons within the Indian territory and not just the citizens. Now, this could actually be justified with Nalsa versus the Union of India, where they recognize the rights of transgender, affirming their right to equality and dignity. Moving on to the second one, we have the nature of equality, formal and substantive. Now, what is the difference between formal equality and substantive equality? Formal equality, as the name suggests, it's actually the equal treatment or equal principle for all. And the second one, substantive equality, means differential principle. Now, as the time is limited, I'd like to skip a bit forward. We'll actually move on to the anti-subordination and the various differences between it. The epistemic grounding, the epistemic awareness, and the epistemic framework. Now, what do you mean by the epistemic grounding? The ground or the very foundation of the formal procedures in Athens were actually blind to the outcome disparities. For literally, in the literal meaning, there was formality, but it was devoid of legality. Moving on, we actually have, now being the last of this, I'd like to discuss about the case studies. As I'd already discussed, this was actually a case-embedded analysis. So there are a few cases that I'd like to put forward. First, the American civil rights tradition, where a person named Brown, he actually was against the anti-subordination principle. You also have the Navteej Singh Johar, the transgender. So in conclusion, the comparative analysis of isonomy and Article 14 of the Indian Constitution is both illuminates a philosophical shift in the conception of equality. But we have the Article 14 being a very dynamic and a justice-sensitive equality. With this, I'd like to wind up, and at this point of time, I'd like to express my gratitude to VMFT for giving me an opportunity to present my theories. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. Thank
Hi.
you for the wonderful presentation. I think within a very short amount of time, you've introduced us to different equality theories. Now, to connect with what happened earlier, because the other speakers were mentioning about there are a lot of equality issues in the society. Now, to pick up from what you have mentioned, if you have to connect these two, which of these theories do you think would address those systemic issues as well as the societal issues mentioned by the previous speakers? Which, if you have to pick among the 4, 1 or 2 of them, which one would you pick? Which would address those issues?
Ma'am, for this ma'am's presentation, I'd like to pick the feminist legal theory, as she discussed about the women's reproductive rights not being addressed properly. And if it's for the first sir or the advocate who presented, I'd actually like to take this very theory of Radbruchian justice and Rawlsian's theory of justice, where they both actually advocate for a moral evaluation of the legal structures.
Thank you. But did you get any, if you get any chance, please try to compare with our constitution, how much of these theories are already been incorporated, because all of us are probably trying to bring awareness. I think this is a wonderful platform. I'm very thankful for getting invited to be listening to all of you. But at the end of the day, if we can combine all these things, right, you are studying, you are a scholar, right, and some of them are already halfway through, some of them are, like Dr. Gopakumar, etc., are actually able to give the wisdom back to some of you. So if we can combine this, it'll be a wonderful intellectual discourse. So if you could probably connect what you've studied with what is existing, that would actually help those who are ahead, right? You could help the academicians by doing such studies. Thank you. I think, I know that I'm stretching more from your presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ma'am, I'd like to quote what Gopakumar sir had said already, that whatever you try to do, there's not going to be a full equality here, but we can actually strive to create equity by helping people to advance socially, economically, politically, legally, whatever. And as he had already said, citizenship was actually based on talent in New Zealand, Australia, but this was not the case in in isonomia, which was actually practiced in the ancient Athens. But we have Article 14 of the Indian Constitution advancing from all of those. Initial Article 14 of the Indian Constitution wasn't like this. But with amendments, we have reservations, affirmative action, all of these advocating for equity. So I'd like to also quote a famous statement of Marcus Cicero. Laws are made for people, not people for laws.
May I just compliment the speaker for a wonderful presentation, such brilliant presentation, and for reaching out to very wide range of ideas and thoughts and presenting it so well. So I just like to congratulate you on a wonderful
Thank you, sir. I
presentation.
really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thank you.